there, chipmunks! Welcome to the AMP Cycling Ride Review Series. I'm your host, Angry Chipmunk, and today we're in Spain, taking on Stage 8 from the 2023 Vuelta a España Xorret de Catí. This route is available on Rouvy, so let's get right to it. This is a moderate length route at just over 30 kilometers long with a reasonable amount of elevation gain at 761 meters. The whole ride averages just 3%, but will max out at an insane 21%. Part of the reason I even chose this route was to see what 21% gradient was like. There are 2 Strava segments included on Rouvy with only 3 on Strava itself. 2 of the segments are pretty similar, just being the last climb, so we'll go with the one included on Rouvy. The first segment is O'Neill Climb. It's at the 4.1 kilometer mark, is 4.7 kilometers long, with 129 meters of elevation gain according to Strava and 137 meters according to Rouvy. It averages 2.8% and peaks at 8%. There's nothing particularly challenging about this climb, especially since the very start of the route is quite similar in the gradient and groupings. The darker orange bits of the segment are mostly around 5 to 6.5%, with the yellow bits backing off to around 2 to 4%. There's a very long descent following the segment, so it's a good one to push up pretty hard if you're so inclined. The steepest bit is right in the middle with a short descent after it. There's no need to pace up the first hill or this one, as you do get quite a long descent and flat before the difficult part of this route. And directly following this segment, there's about 15 kilometers of downhill and flat before the main climb. This is a great place to push pretty hard, as the toughest gradient you'll see is around 7% for only a few meters. The main climb is Xorret. It's at the 24 kilometer mark, is 3.76 kilometers long, with 441 meters of elevation gain according to Rouvy and 439 meters according to Strava. The segment averages a whopping 11.7% and peaks at the 21%. Strava considers this one a Cat 2 climb only. Only a short distance into the climb, you're onto double-digit gradients. A nice touch is that at the 20% sign, you'll actually see 20% on Rouvy. They don't always line up so perfectly, so that was pretty cool. Shortly past the sign, it dips into light yellow before again returning to 10+% from nearly the entire rest of the segment. This is one I didn't really try to push up too hard at all. I sat and spun quite slowly, as it is a ridiculous amount of elevation gain for such a short distance. Unless you're really targeting a good time on this one, I'd say just take it easy. There's a really nice descent into the finish line, which is a great place to start your cooldown. And for this ride, you'll be wanting a very good warm-up, as you do start by climbing. It's not a tough or steep climb, but it's still positive gradient, so don't underestimate it. Give it at least 10 minutes here. And as well, you'll be needing a very good cooldown. The last couple of kilometers are downhill, but a nearly 4 kilometer climb averaging over 10% does require more than just 2 minutes of cooldown. I would say a minimum of 10 minutes and even 15 minutes would be better for this one. And as always, I recommend pre-fueling your rides and including plenty of protein with that. There's no real need on this one to fuel until after the first climbing is done, so any pre-fueling you've done should see you good until then. At that downhill, I would definitely recommend another 15 to 20 grams of carbs in preparation for the main climb. It is a short segment, but can take quite some time to complete, so be sure that your fueling is done well in advance so that it takes effect once you hit the climb itself. And once you're on it, fuel with your faster acting carbs if you need them. A post-ride protein is definitely recommended here, as well as a magnesium supplement. The view on this ride is pretty interesting. Bit of city, bit of country, mountain backdrops, and an unexpectedly difficult climb. There's quite a lot of deserty looking scenery, which is an interesting mix with the big mountain background. The colors aren't amazing with lots of browns, but the bright blue sky is quite nice. You do pass through a couple of small cities, and the local architecture is always an interesting thing to look at. I went pretty moderately on this route and finished it in just under 1.5 hours on 100% difficulty emulation. With needing a very good warm-up and cooldown, plus the rather difficult final climb, I would say to budget anywhere from 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours, depending on how much you like climbing and how hard you push that middle section. It's not really suitable for those with time restraints, but the mellow middle section does mean that you can stop midway and pick it up again later. Overall, this is a fantastic route that I would definitely recommend for those of you wanting to try the hardest climbs you can find. It's not really a climbing route per se, but this final climb is nuts. It's not really a good choice for newer riders. I think I did this route shortly after an update from Rouvy, so the domestique was automatically turned on. I couldn't figure out on the day how to turn it off, and I really hated having it there. It seemed like you were either being dropped by it or passing it too easily with no real consistency to its help. I preferred it once it was out of shot and you could just ignore that it was there. For this route, I give a 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this one from Vuelta. They aren't always that great, so having a nice route and not too much stop-start kind of filming made this one really enjoyable. For the climbs, a 1 out of 5 and 5 to 6 out of 5. If you're looking at that second climb and thinking, oh yes, the first climb isn't going to be any troubles for you. The second, however, is very tough. My trainer maxes out at about 12 to 13%, so it was easier for me than it will be for those with a higher gradient emulation. Pace it carefully or risk bonking. For the view, 4.5 out of 5. Nice views and filming overall. A little dull with the colors, but the big mountain backdrop is very nice. And overall, 5 out of 5. Definitely put this one in your ride queue. It's a massive challenge for those wanting to do some of the toughest segments, and I really enjoyed the ridiculousness of doing a 12% average climb. Well, that's it for this review, so thanks for watching, Chipmunks. Please let me know what you think of the Xorret de Catí route when you complete it. Did you also see this crazy climb and immediately think, I must conquer this? I'll leave you to finish the rest of the ride, and I'll see you next week for another review. Until then, ride on, Chipmunks, ride on.